Good evening. Let's get started. So the declaration is tomorrow. I wanted to get this update early on what trades took place, how many new buyers are now in the funds I cover, which is MSTY and CONY. So let's start today with MSTY. So as we go into the current situation, there were 3 trades. Let me put those on the screen. So as new people come in, and you'll see the count, and I suspect people are jumping into the fund to collect the dividend. So we see the synthetics, the 1700s. We had a buy call open, but they just call it a buy, and a sell short on the puts. So these are always done in a match pair, not very big volume, 27 were done. Now notice in here that you're getting a higher amount for the put because they're still selling the same synthetic. Let's go take a look at that. However, we're now setting, whoops, this is 1538 or 1584. Let me see what the current is. 1578. So when we see this synthetic, we know that we're setting at 1578. Whoops. So that is quite a ways underneath 1700. So it's a situation where when you sell a put, the put is significantly lower, so there's more built in, right? A lot of times you're going out when it's 1750 and you're buying a call. Well, $50 of the call is already in the money. So anyway, they put on 27 new positions, right? They bought the calls at 125.11. They sold the puts for $270.11. So we picked up almost 400,000 additional. But look at us here. Let's see if these match the closing numbers. 187 and 245. No, because we're now at 310 here. I gotta up these numbers. So our actives are 310 positions, and our price on the put is now 263 for the close, 29. And the calls are worth less. The calls are currently 146.4. So that puts us in a lower position, right? You always want the value of your calls to be greater than your puts. We still have profit in the month because these aren't closed out positions. All right, so our synthetics are losing, but we're continuing to add a lot of weeklies. So when we go back to that number, the other third position, and they do this a lot of time with the same count. So we put new synthetics on where we collected more money because we sold expensive puts, and we get that money, and we spent the money on the calls. On the additional, we added a new strike price for the naked calls on the weekly. We added a 1770, and we collected 1765. Let's take a look at that in our current tab. I'll move March over to April pretty soon, but that's reflected here, okay, and the 1770. So that was 12.11% out of the money, and we sold 27 of those, and as I said, collected 1765. So those set as just putting money in the account with an obligation, right? Or we bought those, so they don't put money in, we spent money. But we intend to make money on those. So let's talk about the close. So what did it do from yesterday? So we've almost had we have had three consecutive losing days. We went down 425, 4.25%. We went down 1.77%. And on 4/2 today, the final day before they declare the payments, we went down 2.3%. Okay, how does that compare? Well, when we went down 4.25% on 328, Mr. went down 11.18. So we did better. Weeklies countered on that. So same thing here. We went down about half, 3.98 and 1.77 on Monday. So on Tuesday, we were more like 67-70% of the downdraft. The Mr. went down 3.54 and Misty went down 2.3. All right, so we know about the synthetics, we know about the new weekly call. So they're generating additional because look in the holdings tab. We went up another 75,000 shares. So think back, on 328, we had 1,050. On 4/1, we had 1,250, right? So we've been probably averaging over the last 5 days, maybe 80,000 new people buying into the fund, or share volume. It's not volume of the trades, because trades are buy and sell, but effective net new shares outstanding, right? So they have to pay those. So I've got some interesting updates today on my revised no more trading really before they pay out. So I wanted to give you that and my thinking on what constitutes the new revised stat, because they got to pay a lot more people. I mean, 3 days ago they had to pay 1 million people. Sorry, it's not people. They had to pay 1 million shares. Nowadays they have to pay 1.325, right? Shares. That's a lot more individual amount of money per share that they have to pay out. Okay, let's finish looking at March. I don't really cover this too much, but the change in cash is 3.5 million. They've got more cash, right? That's the net result. They'll probably move it. I don't care where it's distributed across the funds too much at the moment. Let's look at active. So active tells us just how many calls are out there in various categories, right? So we continue to have the volume in the 1985s, right? So we've got 195, so percentage-wise, those calls. But what is really interesting with these pullbacks in Mr., look at how far out of the money. We're almost assured that we're going to collect all the premium. The bad news is the synthetic is underwater, but with the synthetic we have till 419. So we have plenty of time for that to run above 1700. Like I said, we're able to sell puts for a lot of money and buy calls cheaply, but we also need those synthetics to make money. You don't want to become a Tesla in synthetics, right? For those of you that stick with that fund, I have no idea why anybody wants to continue to own it. It will turn around at some point, but it's not now. And based on what I see in the markets, I wouldn't want to own AMD and VIDI. There's several that I don't want to be in over the next 3 or 4 months. You know, until they come out with some of the bearish oriented. Not to say that crypto won't take a hit, it certainly could, but it's got a lot more bullish things lining up for it. Okay, so we got 283 contracts spread out. Here's our capping. Oh, so this has actually come down, and I used this new IV number of 137.60 in my calculations and estimates along with the new share counts, and just played with my assessed payment, right? So I'll give that to you at the end. We're down at 41.26 on the Misty price, right? But that's all talked about here. 2.3% decline versus a 3.54% in the underlying tracking asset. This is reflected in the cash and distribution and payments, but just look at this various litany of calls, and we're looking pretty good on all these. I mean, trading at 1578 and you got 3 trading days, very low probability on the 2130. 1770 is what they say, 10% out. I didn't even add that. I need to add that to the count. That's around 9%. That's 27. So I need to add 27 more here. Okay. And that gives us a total of, and these were on 1770s, around 9-something%. Okay, out of the money. I'm probably going to have to move this, yeah, to pick up 11 there. That's 12.68. Okay, so pretty substantial. Let's make this right while we're at it. So I would say with 3 days left, these 25, 34, and 48s are shoe-ins, and that's the bulk. We probably, now that, remember, if we were to get to 1800, we don't lose, we just don't make as much, right? Anything above 1800. But our synthetics would become a lot more profitable. This is the first time in a long time that our synthetics aren't really profitable, that we still have outstanding. Okay, so we got a lot of money to make in the weeklies to roll out. Our chart is starting to take a little more direction here. Look at this. This is classic technical analysis. We could consolidate here over the next month or so, which would kind of fit into the halving time frame before we take off. So we may in fact trade between 44 and 35 and consolidate some period of time, where I see a lot of these other funds that are tied to the NASDAQ certainly retrace greater and not really be within, more of a pure topping than a consolidation before the next up wave. Okay, let's take a look at, we talked about holdings. The only thing really left I wanted to go over here is I did a revised estimate. So this is what I see in synthetic income. You know, we have it in both. We have already closed out significant synthetic income. We have our weekly naked or our short weekly calls. So I've got us up around $9 and $2. Okay, they're not going to come in and use this and pay $2. So my estimate, and what I call a closely revised estimate, when I look at 41.21 and I look at the IV and I take that out over 12 months and I look at the current price and I look at them being a first payment, I think 467 to 543. I would be real surprised if it wasn't right in those numbers. Could it be a few pennies under, a few pennies over? Yeah, but significant feeling that it's right there. Okay, let's jump into CONY. Used to doing these in the other order, right? So in this case, we'll do it. Let me pull up the trades. Bring this a minute. Open in my CONY and get my interday. Okay. So on our interday, we had 3 trades. Not unlike Mr. And again, I did tell you the volume. So it was 75,000 more in MSTY. So that's significant more shares to pay out. So those of you think that are going to get $7 or $8, I don't see them emptying the kitty. They're going to keep some money behind. So let's talk about CONY and COIN. So they put on 600 new synthetics. Okay, buy to open, they just call it a buy. A sell to short on the put. So buy a call, sell a put. And again, because we're under the synthetic, they chose the 240, and I think we closed at 248. Who knows exactly where we were when we opened this, but we bought the 600 calls for 1481 and we sold them for 1941. So let's take that off and let's see how that looks as we look at our current activity tab. Again, that's going to have to change for the month. So the other position on this sheet was we sold short a naked weekly call. We only got $1.70, but we sold it at 240 with 3 days to go. Now, that one is interesting. So that means anything above 251.7, and we're at like 248, we're going to lose money on that. So if this thing opens up, they're sort of saying we're not going to recover and go above 250 this week. That's got to be the leaning and the bent that the fund managers are thinking. I'm not so sure. We really started to recover later in the day. Okay, so I thought we were 248. We're 245. Let's look at exactly what happened. So coin closed down 2.49. So they had an up day on Thursday, whereas Misty's had 3 successive days, and a lot of that was the revised estimate on MicroStrategy versus how much Bitcoin and the fact that it was overvalued 14% in an article. Sounds to me like some hedge fund had paid to have the article written so they could short it. But those are Wall Street tactics, goes on all the time. All right, so we were down 2.49%, and CONY was down 1.9. You love it when we do that. So we're at 28.14, 245, and remember the synthetic. So let's go take a look at what they did. So they put 600 contract trades, which is a lot of trades, right? They sold, or they bought the call for 1481, and they sold the puts for 1941. Why? Because when they put the trade on for a 250, the put's already in the money, right? So you're going to get, even though there's not 3 days on this, these are out to 419. So we got plenty of time to make money on these. But from a cash flow standpoint, it throws more cash in, right? So we would have picked up almost 400,000, right? The difference between 888 that we spent and 1.164 million that we collected. All right. So we're setting, and we're 1.66 below the current synthetic. All right, we still have some profits in that. Let's take a look at our active. Okay, so we're at 15,275 contracts, non-synthetics, and 285 is our big one, right? Look at these versus 245. So we got 3 trading days, 3, 4, and 5, and our smallest position is the 270, and we're at 245. That could be at risk if there's a big recovery. But we also are going to start making money on our synthetics and our 250s. But these look very likely that we just close out and get to keep the cash, right? So we got about $3.52 per share that we can additionally capture on our naked weeklies. Look at the volatility though. This thing's been rising, whereas even though Mr. has seemingly more volatile, it's traded within a tighter range on hence the volatility. We've moved up in coin. It's been 88, 90, and we're running 95 on this. So at 28.14, so I feel pretty good about the weeklies, really good about the weeklies in both. I'd like to see our synthetics get up, but we have plenty of time. They both have 4/19 expiration dates on their synthetics for CONY and MSTY. All right, I don't think he cares so much. I can pull up holdings, but honestly, it bores me a lot. Just on where the cash is and some of that. I mean, it's relative. but it's not always. Oh, I don't even have it there. Yeah, I'll just leave it off. I think I updated it inside my sheet. It's Misty. We're done with that one. Yeah, I updated it over here. Okay. Yeah, again, I don't find it that important, but it is something worth tracking, but I don't think it's something that really needs to be reported on daily, although I track it. Okay, so as I mentioned, 13,450. This was up 75, I think, was 375 or 350. It was somewhere between 75 and 100, but I think 75. So again, more people to pay, right? So I took a look at this, and looking at your cash, we're right at $7. This is a small amount in the short, the weeklies generating cash. So some people would look at that and say, well, they're going to pay half of that. I don't know. The share count, it's down overall from last month, but it's significantly been increasing. So my gut, based on NAV reserve and where they are, I see 260 to 295. I'd love to get 3. I mean, my biggest position is CONY, and my only other position is Misty. So CONY and Misty are my 2 holdings, and I've said to people, I think the other funds are great when they're in a bull market. We now are heading into a bear market that could last 4 months. So why do I want to get NAV reduction in favor of income? I'd much rather get income on something that I think has a high likelihood of going up and get away from NAV reduction. You know, I'm greedy. I want both, right? So with the bin, I put on some of my own synthetic short positions, and those are about to be put into place because April will probably end up being the high month in the averages, especially in the NASDAQ. And we could recede into August and recover before the elections, again, in my humble opinion. Okay, so this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial professional. Have a good one. Just wanted to give you that feedback before we get the results tomorrow. All right, bye. Good night.